Hello everyone, welcome back to Psych Lens channel. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at a man and wondered, is he genuinely interested in me or just being polite? You replay your conversations, analyze his tone, reread the messages he sends, and still, something inside you feels both excited and uncertain. What if I told you there's one subtle behavior that reveals everything? That when he does this, he's already emotionally invested in you. Before we go deeper, make sure to like this video and subscribe. It helps me reach more women who are done guessing and ready to understand what emotional attraction truly looks like. Now listen closely, because men rarely express what they truly feel at first. They show it, quietly and instinctively, in ways that reveal more than words ever could. When a man is genuinely drawn to you, his defenses shift. You'll notice it not in what he says, but in how his energy changes around you. It's as if his emotional armor, built from years of independence, disappointments, and silent strength, begins to loosen just slightly. He starts revealing parts of his real self, piece by piece, without realizing he's doing it. The biggest mistake most women make is looking for confessions instead of patterns. A man's attraction isn't declared. It leaks out through his micro-behaviors. He starts to mirror your tone, pick up your rhythm, use your phrases. This isn't coincidence. It's subconscious mimicry, a neurological sign of emotional alignment. When he does this, he's no longer performing a role. He's aligning with you. His nervous system feels safe around your presence. Think about that. For a man, safety isn't about protection. It's about acceptance. It's the feeling that he can let his guard down without losing respect. When he laughs more freely, maintains soft but focused eye contact, or begins to open up about things he rarely shares, that's not casual conversation. That's attachment forming. He's not just talking, he's revealing. Here's where most women misread the signal. When he begins to emotionally synchronize with you, he's already made an internal choice. He might not admit it. He might even act indifferent for a while. But deep down he's thinking, she feels different. The question isn't whether he likes you. It's whether you can recognize the signs before you accidentally push him away. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That's exactly what happens when a man starts feeling real attraction. It's not a game, it's chemistry that rewires both of you. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most women lose a man's interest, not because he stops liking them, but because they misinterpret the fragility of that emotional spark. When he starts feeling something deep, he doesn't want to. He fears it. Men are taught to control emotions, not surrender to them. So attraction becomes a quiet inner battle between what he feels and what he believes he should feel. When he leans a little closer, lingers when the conversation should have ended, or gives you that look that lasts half a second too long, he's not just flirting. He's testing the safety of his emotions. He's silently asking, can I trust her with this feeling? Because men don't fall for women they understand. They fall for women they feel. This is where many women go wrong. You start explaining yourself, oversharing, or trying too hard to prove you're trustworthy. But to his emotional instincts, that reads as insecurity. What he truly wants is to feel peace in your presence, calm in your energy. He's not seeking validation. He's seeking stability. When a man's interest deepens, he becomes emotionally transparent in subtle ways. He'll start creating small reasons to be around you, asking questions he doesn't need answers to, teasing you just to see your reaction, or making observations that show he's been paying attention. These aren't random behaviors. They're his subconscious attempts to build emotional intimacy. If you respond to that with calm confidence, not control, not manipulation, just openness, he feels something rare. He feels seen without being judged. That's when he starts to bond. Because connection for a man isn't built through intensity. It's built through consistency, the steady presence of someone who doesn't demand, but understands. You don't need to chase him. You don't need to decode every word. You just need to remain centered while he decides to step closer. Because when a man feels safe enough to be real, he moves toward you naturally. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." The same truth applies here. When you stay grounded in your own energy, you awaken something in him, an awareness that your presence feels like truth, not temptation. Men don't fall for perfection. They fall for peace. They fall for the woman who lets silence feel comfortable, who doesn't rush to fill every gap with words. A woman whose energy says, "I'm not here to control you, I'm here to understand you." That quiet confidence, that soft composure, that's what his instincts crave. So when he starts giving you his attention, his softness, his curiosity, don't smother it. Don't overthink it. Let it breathe. That's how you turn fleeting attraction into emotional depth. Because here's the real secret. You can't make a man love you. You can only become the kind of woman his soul feels safe loving. That's what most dating advice misses. Real attraction isn't built on tactics. It's built on emotional gravity. And that gravity appears when you stop trying to prove your worth and simply embody it. When he's into you, he doesn't need constant reassurance. He just wants to feel your emotional stillness, the kind that says, "I'm not here to compete for you. I'm here to connect with you." Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When you learn to read these unconscious cues in men, the subtle shifts in tone, the quiet openness, the emotional mirroring, you stop mistaking confusion for disinterest. You begin to see what's actually happening beneath the surface. So, if he's softening around you, mirroring your tone, finding reasons to stay in your orbit, don't question it. Recognize it for what it is. That's not just liking you. That's emotional surrender. When he does this, you already have him. But remember, attraction is not a prize, it's a presence. You don't win it, you maintain it. Through calm, through clarity, through authenticity. That's how you keep his heart, not just his attention. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." So become the calm, grounded, emotionally intelligent version of yourself. Because that's the woman who doesn't chase love. She attracts it. When a man begins to fall for you, something subtle but powerful shifts in his behavior. His presence becomes a little heavier, not in a burdened way, but in a way that carries more focus. His eyes linger longer, his tone softens when he speaks, and there's a quiet hesitation before he leaves. That pause means something. It's his heart negotiating with his mind. He's feeling something he didn't plan for, and now his instincts are scanning, not for beauty, not for charm, for safety. A man's greatest vulnerability is not showing emotion. It's trusting that he can show it and not be judged. So when you notice him pulling back slightly after moments of closeness, don't panic. That's not rejection. That's emotional calibration. He's asking himself silently, "Can I let her see more of me?" Every man has been taught in one way or another that emotional exposure is weakness. So when he starts to care, he also starts to test. You'll notice these tests, but they're not what they seem. He might go quiet after being vulnerable. He might joke about something serious to see how you respond. He might even withdraw for a short time. It's not to confuse you. It's his subconscious way of measuring if your calm is real, if your affection remains steady when he isn't performing confidence. Men don't test women to play games. They test because their emotions frighten them. What he's really checking is, can she hold space for my chaos the way she holds space for my composure? Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." That wisdom holds true in love. When you know your own emotions, your fears, your impatience, your insecurities, you no longer take his silence personally. You begin to sense that his retreat isn't distance. It's processing. This is where emotional maturity separates connection from confusion. Instead of chasing, questioning, or over-explaining, you remain steady. You breathe, you trust the silence, you let time reveal truth. Because nothing deepens a man's attraction more than a woman who doesn't panic when he pauses. You see, when he's emotionally invested, he's constantly reading your energy. If you meet his uncertainty with stability, he relaxes. If you meet it with anxiety, he closes. His instinct tells him that peace around you equals safety. And when a man feels emotionally safe, his heart starts opening without resistance. That's when his behavior becomes paradoxical. He might start talking more one day than less the next. He might share something deeply personal, then laugh it off the following moment. Don't misread that inconsistency. It's not immaturity, it's vulnerability in motion. He's learning how to stay open without losing control. If you can remain patient during this emotional oscillation, something profound happens. His nervous system begins to associate your presence with peace. You stop being a possibility. You become an anchor. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." That's the silent battle every man faces when he's falling in love. Your calm presence gives him permission to accept himself, not the version he shows the world, but the one that quietly seeks belonging. Here's where many relationships either grow or collapse. When a man senses that a woman needs his affection to feel complete, he instinctively pulls back, not because he doesn't care, but because it disrupts polarity. Masculine energy is drawn to feminine peace, not dependence. But when he feels that your calm doesn't depend on his validation, he respects you. And respect is the foundation of devotion. When you mirror his energy from a place of authenticity, not strategy, you communicate something powerful. You don't need to perform for me. You can just be. That message disarms his defenses faster than any confession ever could. You'll notice subtle changes. He starts including you in his thoughts, not just his plans. He listens deeper, remembers small details, and makes small sacrifices without mentioning them. Those are the quiet languages of love in men. They rarely say, "I love you," in the beginning. They show it through presence, through effort, through steadiness. The men who are truly into you will often appear emotionally composed but internally restless. They feel more than they admit. And the moment they sense that your energy can hold theirs without judgment, they surrender. Not dramatically, but gradually, like a tide returning to the shore. At this stage, your influence deepens. His emotions start syncing with yours. When you're calm, he feels grounded. When you're anxious, he feels unsettled. That's how energetically connected attraction becomes once it's real. But be careful. With emotional influence comes responsibility. If your mood constantly fluctuates, if your energy becomes unpredictable, his subconscious will begin to retreat again. Because while men crave emotional connection, they fear emotional chaos. So what should you do? Stay rooted. Keep your purpose, your hobbies, your sense of self. That's not just self-love, it's emotional leadership. Because the feminine power he falls for isn't control, it's stability. When you can sit across from him, quiet but confident, and let him come to you at his own rhythm, he feels something few men ever experience. Trust without pressure. That's when his walls begin to collapse. He starts to open up not just about his day, but about his fears, his hopes, his doubts. He begins to confide in you not because you ask, but because his soul wants to. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. When you allow a man to be himself around you, free of judgment, you give him that privilege. You become the mirror in which he recognizes his truest reflection. This is the point where attraction turns into emotional devotion. When he can breathe around you, when he doesn't have to pretend. When he starts using phrases like, "I don't know why I'm telling you this." That's not casual, that's surrender. But remember, this surrender must be met with balance. Because as his heart opens, his fear of losing you intensifies. That's why calm consistency is your greatest tool. Don't try to reassure him with words. Reassure him with your energy. Let your presence say, "You don't have to rush this. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm also not losing myself." And that's the paradox that keeps his attraction alive. Your ability to stay available but not absorbed, engaged but not dependent, soft but never small. When he feels that you have your own world yet still choose to include him in it, he feels honored, not trapped. That's when he stops seeing you as an option and starts seeing you as a sanctuary. Because real love, the kind that endures storms, isn't born from intensity. It's born from emotional steadiness. And when a man experiences that steadiness in you, he realizes something deeper, that peace is the rarest form of passion. And once he associates that peace with you, he'll keep coming back. Not because you chase him, not because you need him, but because your calm feels like home. Once a man feels emotionally safe around you, his energy begins to change in ways words can't fully describe. The guarded tone in his voice softens. His laughter sounds lighter. Even the way he looks at you becomes different, less cautious, more alive. It's the moment his defenses no longer protect him from you, but begin to protect you with him. You'll notice something else too. His rhythm slows. Men who are used to being in control, who've spent years holding everything together, start moving differently when they're with someone who brings them peace. He doesn't rush to impress. He doesn't perform. He just exists comfortably. And that comfort is rare. When he reaches this stage, you stop being someone he talks to. You become someone he thinks through. You occupy his silence. His decisions begin to reflect your presence. He starts remembering details that most people overlook, like how you take your coffee or the way your tone changes when you're tired. He begins to move through his day with you somewhere in his thoughts, not out of obsession, but connection. This is the invisible part of emotional attachment that most women underestimate. Once a man connects with you emotionally, you start to influence his nervous system. Your calm becomes his calm. Your peace becomes his peace. Your silence begins to soothe his restlessness. You don't have to say much. Your energy does the speaking. But here's the paradox. The deeper he feels, the more fragile that peace becomes. Because now, he has something to lose. That's when he becomes hyper-aware of your moods, your tone, even your absences. He starts sensing when you're distracted, when your energy shifts, when your warmth cools. It's not because he's needy. It's because he's emotionally attuned. He feels you in ways he can't always explain. This is where many relationships falter. A woman misreads his emotional sensitivity as insecurity, not realizing it's the byproduct of his depth. When a man truly cares, he becomes emotionally alert. He's scanning not for mistakes, but for reassurance that the peace he found is still safe to rest in. Carl Jung once said, "When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate." The same truth applies here. If you're unaware of how deeply he feels, you might unconsciously create the very tension you fear. You might pull away just when he needs steadiness the most, mistaking his quietness for distance instead of vulnerability. At this stage, what he needs most isn't explanation, it's consistency. Not perfection, but presence. The man who once valued logic now values emotional balance. Because to him, your consistency represents something bigger than love. It represents safety. And when a man feels safe loving you, his heart begins to trust something he never trusted before: stability. But don't confuse his peace with passivity. When a man is in love, his protectiveness awakens, not in the dramatic, possessive way that stories show, but in a deeper, grounded way. He starts caring about your emotional comfort. He becomes aware of how his actions affect your mood. That's devotion disguised as mindfulness. And yet here lies the challenge. The more he feels, the more he fears losing the feeling. That's why you must stay emotionally anchored. Don't let his love become your identity. Let it remain a reflection of your strength. Because the moment you start relying on his validation to feel whole, you break the balance that attracted him in the first place. He fell for your calm, not your control. He was drawn to your peace, not your pressure. When he senses that your love still flows freely, without demand, he relaxes into it like sunlight after rain. There will be moments when he becomes withdrawn again, not because his feelings faded, but because he's overwhelmed by their intensity. Remember, men often process emotions internally. He'll need time to sit with his thoughts to integrate what he feels. If you can honor that silence instead of filling it with fear, you'll teach him something priceless. That love doesn't demand, it allows. When he returns from that silence, his energy will feel different. More certain, more grounded, and you'll realize something profound every time you gave him space. He came back more open. That's the paradox of masculine emotion. It expands through freedom, not through force. Carl Jung once observed, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless it's Roots reach down to hell. The same is true of emotional connection. Deep love requires deep grounding. You cannot hold a man's heart if you cannot hold your own. Your peace becomes his permission to explore his depths without fear. That's why the strongest relationships are never built on constant excitement. They're built on emotional reliability. You become the constant in his storm, the still point he doesn't have to question. Over time, that consistency becomes something sacred. You'll notice it in the small things. The way he starts confiding in you about his frustrations, his failures, his family, the way he seeks your presence after difficult days, the way he begins to use the word we without realizing it. That's not manipulation. That's transformation. His independence hasn't disappeared. It's evolved. The truth is, men don't stay for beauty, for thrill, or for status. They stay for peace that feels like truth. They stay where their soul rests easy. And if your presence gives him that, he'll guard it more fiercely than anything else in his life. But there's another layer to this story. As he attaches more deeply, he will test your emotional integrity again. Not because he doubts you, but because he's making sure the peace he feels isn't temporary. He wants to know, can she stay calm when my emotions fluctuate? Can she still be soft when I'm distant? Can she still trust when I'm quiet? These aren't conscious questions. They're instinctive. He's not trying to push you away. He's trying to see if your love is resilient enough to last. The key is to stay emotionally fluent. Don't mirror his confusion. Mirror his potential. When he's lost, you stay present. When he's restless, you remain calm, not as his savior, but as his reflection. That's the kind of feminine energy that doesn't just attract, it transforms. And that transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens in 1,000 small moments, moments where you choose stillness over reaction, understanding over assumption, trust over testing. By then, he's no longer evaluating whether you're the one. His heart already decided. His mind is just learning to catch up. When you reach that point, love stops feeling like pursuit. It feels like presence. You no longer chase each other, you meet each other, in silence, in peace, in mutual safety. And that's when you'll realize, when a man feels deeply connected, he doesn't need to be convinced to stay. He stays because he feels home. When a man reaches the point of emotional surrender, something profound begins to unfold. He stops evaluating love through logic. He stops questioning whether you fit into his plans. You simply become part of his emotional rhythm. The relationship no longer feels like something he needs to maintain. It becomes something that maintains him. He starts seeking you not for excitement, but for balance. He's drawn to the quiet steadiness in your tone, the gentleness in your reactions, the peace that surrounds you when the world feels chaotic. In that presence, he finds a reflection of the man he wants to be. Calm, focused, unshaken. But here's the truth few talk about. When a man falls deeply in love, he also becomes emotionally exposed in ways he never expected. The same walls that once protected him are now down, and that makes him sensitive to shifts he never noticed before. He'll sense when your affection dims, when your tone changes, when your silence carries tension instead of serenity. That's not paranoia. That's resonance. His nervous system is now in sync with yours. This is why emotional discipline matters more than emotional intensity. Because at this level, your energy doesn't just influence his attraction, it becomes the environment he lives in. If your peace holds steady, he feels secure. If your emotions turn reactive, he feels unsafe. Carl Jung once wrote, "What we resist persists." When you resist your own emotions, when you suppress instead of process, that tension doesn't vanish. It shows up as distance, irritation, or unpredictability. And when he feels that instability, his instincts tighten. The connection he once trusted begins to feel uncertain. The way you preserve his love is not through constant reassurance, but through inner regulation. You stay grounded. You breathe before reacting. You listen before judging. You return to your calm before returning to him. Because a woman anchored in peace gives a man something he can't find anywhere else: emotional safety, wrapped in grace. Here's a paradox worth understanding. Men don't stay for excitement. They stay for equilibrium. Excitement draws them close, but equilibrium keeps them there. When your love is warm but not chaotic, when your softness isn't fragile, when your emotions flow but never flood, he relaxes into that energy like a sanctuary. At this stage, he no longer needs grand gestures to believe in your affection. What keeps his devotion alive are the simple things. The quiet confidence in your voice, the way you meet his frustration with empathy instead of resistance, the way your silence comforts rather than punishes. Those moments build trust more than any declaration ever could. And yet, even in deep connection, tests will come. Life will challenge your balance. There will be moments when he grows distant again, when his old fears resurface. Maybe work pressure, personal insecurity, or silent exhaustion pulls him inward. Don't interpret that as rejection. It's his instinct trying to stabilize. Your reaction in these moments determines whether the relationship deepens or dissolves. If you panic, chase, or accuse, you confirm his fear that love equals loss of control. But if you remain calm, steady, and kind, you remind his heart that peace still exists here. The strongest women are not the loudest. They are the ones who can love without losing their center. Remember, love doesn't demand constant proximity. Sometimes it needs respectful distance, a pause for both hearts to breathe. Let him come back to you willingly, not through guilt, but through gravity. Because the truth is, once a man has felt peace in your presence, he will always find his way back. Here's something most never realize. Men test not to challenge your patience, but to confirm your permanence. When you stay emotionally stable through his storms, you teach him that your affection isn't conditional. That's when his trust transforms into devotion. A devoted man doesn't chase variety. He seeks depth. He wants to feel that the woman beside him can weather not just laughter, but silence. Not just passion, but stillness. He wants to know that love won't disappear when the excitement fades. When you embody that kind of peace, you become unforgettable. But sustaining devotion also means protecting polarity. Keep your own life alive. Stay curious. Keep your ambitions burning. Continue nurturing your individuality. Because the moment your entire identity revolves around him, the magnetic balance shifts. The polarity that once drew him toward you begins to flatten. He fell in love with your wholeness, the woman who had her own rhythm, her own dreams, her own quiet mystery. Never abandon that. The healthiest relationships are not two halves completing each other. They are two wholes walking side by side. Carl Jung once observed, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. In love, that means this: you can't copy anyone else's version of connection. You must craft your own rhythm, one built on mutual respect, emotional honesty, and the freedom to breathe. So when you love consciously. Let him feel that your affection is a choice, not a need. Let your actions say, "I choose you," not because I lack something, but because I value what we create together. That clarity keeps his respect alive. And respect is what keeps attraction eternal. Over time, you'll notice something extraordinary. Your peace begins to transform him. The man who once guarded his emotions starts becoming softer, more expressive. His silence becomes gentler. His tone becomes warmer. You haven't changed him. You've reminded him who he truly is beneath the noise. When a man feels loved without pressure and accepted without conditions, he becomes his best self. That's the quiet miracle of feminine presence. It heals without forcing. It strengthens without dominance. It leads without control. And yet don't forget to keep that energy balanced. A woman who gives peace must also protect her peace. If ever the relationship drains more than it nourishes, pause. Don't try to fix him, save him, or convince him. The same calm that attracted him should also protect you. Your serenity is sacred. Guard it fiercely, because at the end of it all, love is not about possession. It's about partnership. It's two souls walking in rhythm, not because they need to, but because they choose to, every day, again and again. When a man feels that kind of love, grounded, patient, self-assured, he doesn't wander. He doesn't doubt. He doesn't play games. He builds, he invests, he protects, and the bond becomes something unshakable. So, if you've noticed him softening around you, If his voice lowers when he speaks, if he starts letting his guard fall in your presence, know this, that's not weakness. That's trust. You've already touched something sacred in him. Don't rush it. Don't test it. Just nurture it. Because when a man has emotionally surrendered, you don't need to win him. You just need to keep the peace that made him fall. And remember this truth as you go. Men don't stay where they're entertained. They stay where they are understood. They stay where they feel calm. They stay where love feels like peace. Because in the end, that's what every heart, masculine or feminine, is really searching for. Not fireworks, not fantasy, just home,